Welcome back everyone. Today we're going to be showing you something a little bit different. Going to be doing some videos in Kerbal Space Program. And of course I know there's a lot of videos about Kerbal out there, so I wanted to do something a little bit more unique rather than just add my video to the typical things that you typically see. So instead we're going to try to break the real-life water speed limit. And I know of course that's been done in Kerbal Space Program before. People have gotten up to about 500 meters per second from what I've seen. I'm not going to be going near that today, but one thing about all those videos that I saw was that they all took place before the most recent Kerbal update, when they did a lot of physics changes with the water, as well as adding some of the new jet parts that you can see on this plane here. And I have not seen as many high speeds since that update, so I think this is something worthy to pursue, and hopefully we'll have some good results. This right here is one of the more successful designs. It's not the final one that I've settled upon, but it is one of the more stable ones. And you can see right here, it's basically just a water skimmer, or you could call it hydrofoil or whatever, and just meant to go really fast, not lift off the water, but just go as fast as it can on the water. And so it has several features to it. I'll kind of talk about the development of that throughout the video, and just how we got to this point here. Now the water speed limit that we're trying to reach is in meters per second is about 141 meters per second, and so we will try to get up to that. Most of these kind of capped out about 100 meters per second, but we did manage to get over that a few times. So starting out with our Mark 1, as we can call it, this was the first design that I chose. I had originally been trying to break the land speed record, but due to the lack of flat land, that proved to be quite impossible. Of course I know that some people have broken that with some ridiculous designs, but I like to actually have stuff that looks kind of good. So the first problem with this one, as you can see right away, is the pontoons were too short as far as the front goes, and it's just going to dive right into the water. So that had to be fixed right away. Then we move on to our Mark II design. The pontoons were pushed more forward on the aircraft, and that way we shouldn't be nosediving as we go into the water here. And so we'll see what happens. So right away it's floating much more stable, not taking that nosedive, and so we'll fire up the engines and see what this one does. And crash. Oh, no. Have an aircraft. Okay. So we failed to make a skimmer, and we have made an aircraft. Cool. This one, we didn't really actually do any edits to the design. We're just going to try something new with the piloting, which is not working. Okay. Was going to try it with using the thrust vectoring, but that does not seem to have been sufficient. I'm just going to go ahead and turn the afterburners on here and have some fun with this one. So we'll see how much flight we can get out of our little aircraft here. It does actually look kind of cool. Sort of like a starfighter or some weird space thing, but definitely not the most stable aircraft. Nope. Oh well. And enough of that. So now we have the, I guess this is Mark IV now. Anyways, we have extended the pontoons further to the front to help us have more stability at these high speeds. The one problem about these seaplanes is that you have to keep the engines a bit raised up so they aren't getting drowned out by the water, but especially since we don't have any center of lift, since we don't have any lifting surfaces on this craft, the only thing that you have to go by is the center of gravity versus the center of the thrust, and since the center of thrust is slightly higher than the center of gravity here, it is always wanting to go down into a nosedive. So we had to put the pontoons more forward to counterbalance that fact. And this has created more of a stable aircraft here. We are using also the thrust vectoring, and I'm actually pulling back the stick as hard as I can in order to make sure that this doesn't go into a dive. So you can see that a lot of thrust is getting wasted. We're maxing out at 70 meters per second right now because we're wasting a lot of thrust on just keeping this craft stable. So we're going to have to try to improve that design in order to make it where we can put more thrust in a straighter direction and get more out of it. So I guess this would be Mark V here, and went ahead before doing that, we just talked about trying putting in the ramjet engines instead, see if we could get more thrust out of it just to fight through all those problems, but that one did not work out so well, as you can see there. So more DACA is not always the answer. Usually. Anyways, here we have the Mark VI, I guess. We have added canards at the front. They will help to keep our nose down, and that way we can turn the thrust vectoring off on the engines and keep our thrust going forwards so that we aren't wasting so much force in just stabilizing our aircraft. So going on into the water here, see what happens. Put the landing gear up, and now firing up the engines. So you can see right away we're able to fire the thrust straight backwards, so there's no wasted force here, and the canards are doing their job of keeping our nose level so that we aren't diving into the water. So looking pretty stable. And nope. So apparently we did not have enough force to keep ourselves stable there. So, what we have done here, went ahead and switched back to the ramjets just to see. One thing about the other engines we were using, the Panther engines, they had better thrust vectoring than these ramjets. So that's one reason I was using them originally, but since we don't need the thrust vectoring anymore, we're going to go ahead and switch to the ramjets. We've added bigger canards to help keep ourselves more labeled, so that should hopefully be enough force. I'm going to go ahead and turn the thrust vectoring on to the ramjets here, since they don't have much thrust vectoring anyway, just a little bit to help us out, and we'll see how this one goes. And unfortunately it looks like we might be starting to take off. We're actually breaking the water speed limit here, but it doesn't really matter since we're not actually on the water. And there we go. Yeah. So, not meant to be an aircraft. So, anyways, we will go on to this version. I don't even know what version this is anymore. We have added the wings there on the side. They are pointed in such a direction, tilted on the center of gravity in order to give us downforce like a spoiler. That should drive us into the water so that we can stay on it and not wind up doing an accidental takeoff. You'll see also I switched back to the turbofan or Panther engines. That is actually through multiple other tests, which I have not shown in this video. Found those to be ultimately the most reliable ones. I think it has to do with the fact that ramjets need more speed to create more thrust, whereas these kind of have more raw thrust, and the ramjets just seem to cause more crashes, as well as even being slower in some instances. Also had an air brake on the top, which you just saw go down there. Ultimately didn't really have much purpose, but yeah. So here we have about 90 meters per second. We seem to be kind of capping out at that point. Not going much over that. So we're going to need to make a few improvements to this design to see if we can get it to go any faster than that. I had a little bit of deviation on the design, trying to make something more like a hydrofoil here, but right away we are having issues with it nosediving into the water. So that's obviously not going anywhere. So we tried to put these pontoons a little bit more forward on the nose, or ahead of the nose. That way, as we are driven into the water, we bounce out, but again, we're having the same sort of issue. And gonna go ahead and try to just see if these tail fins here will help us out a little bit. Maybe they can stabilize our flight. But it doesn't look like it. This thing wants to be a submersible. And yeah, we're not getting anywhere with this design. So, nope. Moving on. So we had this design, has two pontoons on the wingtips, and so that should help to balance out a little bit, but again, with the nosedive, so this one's not going to work quite so well. The center of thrust is just too high above the center of gravity, so with this one we tried to lower the center of thrust a good bit. Now this one, actually I really like the design of it. I want to try to evolve this one more to see where it goes, but as for this video, it started to be pretty stable, and then all of a sudden there was a little bit of imbalance there on the right, and it just, yeah, didn't work. But I'd really like to see where that one can go in the future. So moving back to original design, which obviously was proving to be much more reliable, we have switched out the front of the pontoons there. That should give us more surface area than what we had before, hopefully keeping us more stable so that we aren't flipping all over the place again. I did find ultimately though that this one was capping out on its speed, although it did give me very stable flight, which is good. This one did not crash, surprisingly enough, but it wasn't giving me the speed that I was looking for. So we're going to try a few little edits here. I do feel like there's a little bit too much drag going on, so we're going to try to reduce that as much as we can. And with this design here, we have, you can see those wings there on the side at the center of gravity. We have made those level, and nope, not working. Okay, so this is actually the final design where we wound up with. The wings are tilted back a little bit, so they aren't level, but they aren't as extreme of an angle as what we had before. You can see already the difference this is making, as it's giving us a much more stable flight, and the canards there at the front are also much more level than they were before, which is dramatically reducing the lag there, or drag there. You can see what I just did there was I lowered the flaps on the wings. I found that to give us a little bit more of a boost, so that way we get just enough lift off the water so that we stay on the water, we don't wind up taking off, but we do get a lot more speed out of it. And so you can see our speed's climbing pretty rapidly there. I don't know if you can see all the numbers here in the video. I do apologize for that quality there, but we are actually getting right around the record speed there. And so Yep, there we are, right around 140. So we have broken the water speed limit. And we can go a little bit over, but the craft starts to get pretty unstable after that. So we have finally accomplished it with this aircraft. I don't know if you could see it in that last video, so I did it one more time here in the cockpit view, so the numbers are much more large, and so you should be able to see it here. 137, 138. Again, the target is 141, which we have just exceeded. Now this one here is just kind of another version I made just for fun. It's stable like the other one, but it definitely doesn't go as fast. Maxes out at about 100 meters per second, so definitely not as fast there. But nice thing is this one does carry more fuel, by one more tank, so it can go farther. Also carries 2 people, so one more person than the last one, so it could be more of your civilian purposed version. And we'll take a little cockpit view. I do like the view in here. Of course, Bill seems pretty worried about what's going on right now. He's been through several crashes today, so he's not very happy about being back in our aircraft here. But speaking of crashes, let's go ahead and see how many Kerbals were harmed during this video.